All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Street Parking Podcast. And we're back again with an interview with one of our members that's here to do one of the vault workouts with us. We've got Joe Macht.
That is correct, yes.
Macht with us here today. And he has not done his workout yet at the time of this recording. So he's still just easy breezy over here. Joe is a baker, a soccer referee, and a fitness enthusiast. So very varied things going on in his life. He's a father of 3 and just super pumped to chat with him and hear his story and advice that he might have for the Street Parking members. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We were just talking before as Salvi was setting up the cameras and the audio and everything about baking stuff. So yes. I didn't know, because I've known who you are for a while, but I don't think that I registered or I missed somehow that you are a baker. So there's a lot of different areas of baking. Yes. What is your specialty?
So I started as a cake artist.
Okay. So like, if I watch like Cupcake Wars and things like that, is that what you're talking? Like you're really good at the decorating? Is that what a cake artist is?
Yeah. So making birthday cakes, wedding cakes, things like that. So
how do you become a cake artist? And how do you were you an artist and then it went into cakes, or were you into baking and then it went into artistry?
Baking into artistry.
Okay.
So like, I don't consider myself an artist, even though what I do is very artistic. Mm-hmm. But it was doing my own kids' birthday cakes. After my oldest, for her 1-year-old, when she turned 1, I paid for a custom cake. Mm-hmm. And it was beautiful, it tasted great.
What kind of cake was it? Did it have a theme?
What was hers? I think that was like a princess cake with like a doll in it and into the cake.
I can picture
if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm not paying that much money for a cake again. And so I started making them. I'm like, I think I can do this. And it went horribly wrong the first few times. Like they were really, really ugly. But then just kept working at it and got better. And then it just kind of exploded from there. And then people were like, where'd you get your cakes? I'm like, I did it.
Okay, so what were you doing before this baking thing started then?
I was in finance. I was a financial planner.
Like, listen, finance is great. I want to make princess doll cakes.
Exactly. That was 100% what happened. No.
That's so funny.
So when the world shut down during COVID, I, like everyone else, started working from home. I was stay-at-home dad, homeschool teacher.
Right.
My workouts took off because I had more time.
Right.
And I was just trying to keep my financial planning business afloat at the time while managing everything else. Mm-hmm. And so baking was an outlet for me, and workouts were an outlet. So get the kids going on stuff, get out to the garage, bang out a few workouts, and then bake. And I got into a lot of other things, and that took off.
That's actually makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize it was still a somewhat newer thing that it happened during COVID, because I feel like a lot of people became, not to your level, but a lot of people were all of a sudden baking and trying new recipes and stuff like that because they were just home during and because all the restaurants and stuff in a lot of places were closed down. Where do you live?
In just outside one of the suburbs of Kansas City.
Okay.
So officially Independence, Missouri, but
right. Kansas City is in Missouri, everyone, not in Kansas.
There is a Kansas City, Kansas.
It's like on the border.
It's right on the border.
Right.
So
I
can be in Kansas in 10 minutes. So.
Okay. So now you have a business though, like an actual baking business, and you specialize, I think you told me, in wedding cakes and macarons.
Macarons, yes.
Not macaroons, everybody.
I've never made a macaroon, which is like your little balls of like coconut ball things. I've never made one, but macarons are my specialty.
He's got some here in the office with him today.
Yeah, I brought a dozen out here for people to enjoy.
So because when I picture wedding cake, I picture the like all the super decorative little flowers and all. I mean, do you do all of that? And is it just you? Are you a one-man show?
I am completely by myself. My oldest is 13. She will help with some of the behind-the-scenes sorting of ingredients and separating eggs to get the egg whites for the macarons. But no, it is just me trying to do it all. For weddings now, it's pretty rare that I'm just doing a stacked tiered cake. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of those this year, but most of them are these macaron towers that fade in color based on the wedding theme. and then a smaller cake on top of it. So those are really fun. That's become really my specialty and what I really love to do.
That's cool.
Because there's a lot of artistry that goes into getting the colors just right to match the wedding, so the macarons look just right, and then designing a smaller cake on top is always a lot of fun.
If someone would have told you 10 years ago that you were going to be doing this, what would you have thought?
Oh, I would have laughed hysterically. Like, I just bake on occasion for fun, and like that's not a specialty thing of mine.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of happened.
Wow, that's awesome. So Baker, you've got the whole thing going now, complete career switch during COVID, but you're also, which is like a completely different, it's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
You're a soccer referee.
Yes.
For like professional, what kind of soccer are we talking here?
So my primary is collegiate.
Okay.
So the fall is crazy.
Are there specific schools that you work for?
So at the college level, we work conferences, especially at Division I. So the conferences that I work primarily, the bigger conferences, are the WAC and the Big 12, and then some other kind of your mid-major type of Division I conferences that are local to the Kansas City area. And then all the local schools of junior colleges and NAIA and Division II, Division III type of stuff locally.
How long have you been doing that?
It is now about 15 years that I've been refereeing.
So longer. Did you play soccer?
I played at a small Christian college where I went. We had like a somewhat competitive intramural program, and I played there. Was not very good. And that was going to be the extent of my playing career.
How does one get into, because I feel like both of your careers are very rare.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are other people who do both of those things, but it's not a super common thing. So how does one get into becoming a soccer referee, especially if you didn't necessarily like have a long, successful soccer career yourself and just it naturally happened?
Yeah. So when I graduated from college, I knew obviously I was not playing anywhere after that. And I mean, I barely played in college. And I just wanted to be involved. And a friend was a referee and I was like, hey, you should come try it. So, I mean, my first games were like those U10 type age little kids out at fields and running around with little kids. And then found out that it could be a career and a path to upgrade, and that there was a way to move up through the ranks and do semi-professional and professional games. And now I do outdoor, I do semi-professional leagues and get to do quite a bit of that. And then indoor, arena league soccer, I get to work the professional ranks now.
How many games a year do you referee?
A lot.
You think?
A lot.
Like how much are you working at this?
So right now, being winter time,
right,
and it's primarily indoor soccer, at the most 1 to 2 games a week.
Okay.
It gets really busy in the fall when I've got collegiate soccer, some high school, and some semi-professional games. And it is not uncommon that I'm doing 5 to 6 games a week.
No wonder you wanted to make some macarons.
Yeah, I need some more calories and some sweets.
Have you ever worn like a pedometer or anything that tracks your steps?
Yeah.
In like an
so
average
this
week
is my watch that
during
I wear,
like spring ball?
Yeah.
Or fall ball or whatever?
Yeah.
What are you averaging? Like in a week where it's like high school, professional, like all of these, and you're doing multiple games, it's got to be nuts.
It's a lot. So a typical game, you have 2 different positions, right? You've got the referee in the middle who has the whistle, and then assistant referees with the flags. Most games, I prefer the whistle. And if I have the whistle at that level, it's usually 5.5 to 7 miles, depending on the game.
During the game.
Is what we run. Assistant referees, again, it kind of depends on the flow of the game, but somewhere between 2, as much as 3.5 to 4 miles in a match.
Wow. Okay. So when we had asked you guys a few questions before you came here, and one of the things that you said was how you found street parking.
Yeah.
Was because you were told you joined in 2019. So before that, you were told you're a really good ref, but you're too fat.
Yes. Those were the exact words used. You are too fat to do more professional games.
Okay, and so that's not great because you clearly enjoy it. Like I can just see how much your face lights up when you talk about it.
Yeah.
What were you doing other than, refereeing itself is physical activity and that is definitely considered fitness. It's not structured in the gym and blah, 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 but you're doing fitness. Other than that, at that time, when you were told that you were too fat to continue or to grow in your career or whatever, what else were you doing? Were you doing anything else?
Very little.
Okay.
And so that was part of the problem.
Right.
Refereeing was primarily my fitness outlet.
Which is, I think, could be fine for, I mean, if that level of mileage is maintained like year round and your nutrition's dialed in, you're not going to be well-rounded.
No, not at all.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good amount of activity.
So it is, but when you look at a 90-minute match plus stoppage time, I mean, you're looking at average of a 12 to 15-minute mile pace, which is okay for some people, but not
way better than what most people are doing, for sure.
But that's, for where I was, that wasn't going to get me in shape, that kind of pacing.
And I would assume, I'm not a huge soccer fan, but I've watched enough of it to assume that every once in a while you need to be able to run fast.
Yeah.
Like not the whole game, but a few times here and there, you've got to be able to chase down the action and where it's going and change direction and stuff really quickly.
Yes.
So being overweight would make that difficult.
Was very much so, significantly more difficult, which makes...
And remain your cognitive function
while
you're doing that. Yes.
So being able to not only be able to sprint on occasion and then be constantly moving for an hour and a half, but also make split-second decisions. You have to, the fitness has to be there because you can't be thinking about my legs hurt, my lungs hurt,
you have to be paying attention too,
I have to be able to then, was that a foul? Was it a careless foul or was this an egregious foul?
Right.
And be able to make that decision instantly.
Right.
As you're running.
You know, that's so funny. My only frame of reference for that would be a lot of times when Caitlin and I or other people that here in the office will be working out together and I'll be like doing my thing, going for it. And she's like over here, like off to the side. And I'll be like, Caitlin, go lower. And she's like, what the heck? She's like, how can you even notice what I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to be able to maintain that.
Yeah. And I mean, so that's why our fitness tests, we have a sprint component where you have to run 40 meters in a certain speed based on the level that you're at. It gets faster the upper levels that you go. And then we have the endurance part. So being able to run intervals for long periods of time.
So there's like one organization that basically sends out referees to all these different games and stuff like that. Is that how that works?
Kind
of. And then you have a fitness test for that organization?
Kind of. Soccer is really weird. It's different than a lot of other sports from my understanding. So at the outdoor, your professional games and semi-professional games are all governed by U.S. Soccer. Collegiate is governed by the NCAA, which is a totally separate organization, totally separate fitness test. High school is its own entity. Indoor is its own entity.
So you're in different organizations. It's not one.
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of different paths, and you have to kind of be in all of these different people. Now, there's a lot of crossover, right? Because we all do a lot of different leagues, especially at that level.
Right.
But yeah, they're all separate entities, really.
Wow. Okay, so you weren't doing much other than reffing the games, and they told you if you want to keep growing or if you want to keep doing this, like you're too fat. You're too big.
Exactly.
Fat. I mean, I feel like that's like a word that people aren't allowed to say these days, but that's what they said to you.
That's what I was told. Yes. It's not the nicest way, but it was. So
I'm not saying that. They said that. Exactly. I'm just repeating it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's not the nicest way to put it, but for me and my personality, it was exactly what I needed to hear. Because at that time, I needed to hear look, you don't look good on camera.
Okay. It was
and
even that.
You're overweight, right? And when you watch a game, right, soccer players are pretty fit.
Yes.
And when you're, at the time, I was like 270, 275 pounds.
Wow, okay.
I did not look like I could run. I could, but not great.
Right.
And so that became the driver of, I've got to find something. I had tried all sorts of fad diets and crazy, like super low calorie and no carbs, and go figure it out at Globo gyms and just lift whatever. I had no idea what I was doing.
What's the I hate to use the word dumbest, but I use dumbest as like after you did it or as you were trying to do it, you're like, this is so dumb. Like there's what's the silliest or most over the top diet or cleanse or program that you tried?
So
in your opinion.
There was
like
one.
How far did you take it? Is what I'm trying to ask.
There was one
you.
where I became what they called a health coach.
Oh.
And it was selling these little meal replacement fuelings.
Okay.
And
you got into that.
I got real deep into that, and I lost a lot of weight originally.
Okay.
And you were eating. I did the calculations at one point. So I was 270 pounds, and their program, I would eat one actual meal, and then 5 of these meal replacement fueling things, and we were eating about 1,100 calories in a day.
And you were still trying to do your
and I was still trying to referee. I wasn't doing any workouts at that point because they told you don't do workouts. Which was great.
Interesting. Well, because you are only eating 1,100 calories.
You're not eating much.
That might be good advice.
I've dropped a ton of weight really quickly, but as soon as I stopped that, all of the weight came back on within 2 months.
Wow.
So that was the craziest. But because I lost a lot of weight, I went into the pyramid scheme piece and became a health coach for a few months.
Interesting.
And then realized this is not healthy. This is not a good idea.
Dang. Okay. So, how did you find street parking then? Were you still doing nothing at all, pretty much, other than the refereeing when you joined street parking?
So I had connected with a good friend, another referee friend, who at the time was trying to be a personal trainer. So he wrote a few workouts, and we would do some kind of typical gym, just lifting. That got really boring for me, and so I just kind of was looking around, and then I had a couple of old friends from college and some other people that I happened to follow on Instagram, and they were doing some stuff, and I'm like, that looks kind of interesting. What do you do? And they told me about street parking, and so I joined, and within 2 weeks fell in love.
Oh. Had you ever done this type of fitness before? And I mean, like thrusters and clean and jerks or any of that kind of stuff?
I had never done any Olympic lifting. I had never done any type of movements that we do on a consistent basis now. Like I had no experience with any of that. So I was trying to figure out, I couldn't even do a pull-up when I started.
I mean, you had a lot, that's heavy.
Yeah, it was a lot of weight. And now I do them with vests, and it's still lighter than it was at that time.
That's so crazy. Okay, so you're in almost 4 years now. I think that this is really great. You're a really great person to talk to because you've come so far, and many of our members and many of the people that I've interviewed had background in, I used to go to a CrossFit gym, or I used to do XYZ in college, but you are somebody who hadn't done these movements before. So,
I had barely heard of CrossFit when I joined street parking. So I knew very, very little.
You came in, and how did you start? What equipment did you have? Where were you working out? And how were you choosing the workouts and figuring out how to do the movements?
So when I first started, I was still going to a local community gym. And so I was the crazy guy in the corner, like taking up wall space, trying to do these half wall walk things at times, trying to do box jumps onto these pedestals that would go into the little into the rigs, finding dumbbells and moving them around. They had assault bikes, they had rowers, they had assault runners. So it was a really nice gym, but I would be moving stuff around and doing a lot of crazy things different than everybody else there. But that was how I started. So I had access to a lot of equipment early on, and then it was just trying to piece it out and figure out the movements. And I typically steered clear away from anything that was any kind of cleans or snatches or any of that kind of stuff because I had no idea what I was doing.
So I know which equipment you prefer now, but before we get to that, when you first started, would you typically go with the dumbbell? Did you ever do shift? Like, how did you choose which version of the workout you were going to do?
So I started and tried to go all in and would do dumbbells and barbells and things like that in this gym that I found out very quickly I was not ready for that, and then backtracked back into shift so I could figure out some movements. And that was really how I started. Did a lot of shift early on. And then it was, okay, can I get to what is prescribed as the women's weights? And so that was my first goal, where I could do all of the women's RX weights to start. And then finally got to there and then just kept trying to increase from there.
Did you get involved in the community pretty early on, or because I know you have like a group now that you guys talk all the time?
Yeah, and that was kind of how I started, was seeing a lot of the community and a lot of the different people connecting. And so I just would search the hashtag street parking and see who had those and who had a key in their profile, and who had those kind of things on Instagram. And then I would randomly tag them in my stories.
Wow.
Some of them became friends. Some of them never responded, and that's okay. I felt like kind of a little creeper originally, but it developed some really good friendships. People that are great friends to this day all over the country, that just kind of got to know through that.
How did you get past, especially because you were doing this stuff at a community gym where other people were watching you? Do you still train? Where do you train now?
So now I'm in my garage.
Okay. How long were you in the community gym, and when did you move to your garage?
So I started in August there, when I first started, August 2019. And I really started, I was like, you know what? Because I didn't know if this was going to stick. I had done a lot of other things that never stuck with me. And then I got to 75 workouts, and I was like, okay, I'm in this thing.
Mm-hmm. We weren't trying to get you to sell stuff for us.
Yeah,
at that
exactly.
Point.
Like there was, again, I'd had some bad experiences, and of like, hey, now you need to be a health coach.
Here's your hoodie, and here's your pack of stuff you got to go sell.
And so I had really at that point I was all in. Once I got the 75 hoodie, I was like, all right, now this is the thing. This is it for me. And so I started looking at, all right, I want to build out my garage. I don't want to have to keep driving, because that was middle of winter.
How long did it take you to get your hoodie? Do you remember?
It was right at 3 months.
Okay, perfect.
I was pretty much right at 3 months. At that time, it was a little easier because you could log more than one workout a day.
But yeah.
But anyway, but I did that right then, and then it was February, March. I was like, all right, I'm all in. I'm just going to build out the garage.
Okay, so like
and
6
dropped
months.
About right at 6 months in, dropped a large chunk of change to rep. It delivered big pallets of squat rack and barbell and plates and plyo boxes and everything. Sandbags, I got it all. I was like, I'm all in. Like, I love all of this, and I want the variety. It dropped. It was within 10 days, the world shut down from COVID.
Right.
And now I have a stacked garage.
That's so crazy.
What good timing. The timing was unbelievable.
It would have been hard for you to get all that stuff 2 months later.
Yeah, I considered selling it because I could have tripled my money.
Benny sold some of his, our photographer Benny, he sold some of his gear during that time. He's like, whatever, I have enough. I don't need all this stuff. So he sold some of his and made a profit.
I did sell a few of my, like a lot of people, I had a few older equipment that I didn't really like anymore. And I did end up selling some of that. But people would walk in the garage. They're like, "Is that for sale?"
I know, we thought we were gonna get robbed.
No, it is not, because I can't buy it right now.
That's so funny. Okay, so how did you, going back to when you were still at the community center, how did you get over that? I might look silly doing these movements. I'm over here dying while everybody else is just kind of going at a slow pace on the elliptical trainer, looking at me especially because you were also big. Mm-hmm. So I think you had a combination of things that stops people from starting.
Yeah.
You were big, you had to do it in a public place, and you had never done any of these movements before.
Yeah.
Many people, if they had one of those things, it would stop them from even trying. They would be like, I can't do this. I'm too embarrassed. This is not for me. How did you overcome all of those things to get to that point where now you're outfitting your garage and I know you lost a bunch of weight, which we'll talk about, but those three things I feel we hear all the time of I'm too embarrassed, or I'm not ready, or I can't do it, or I don't want people to look at me, or how did you overcome that?
It was really difficult. It really was. It was a mental battle every time I would go. So I tried to find times that I could go when there wasn't as many people there. Mm-hmm. So I was not part of that 5:30 show up in the afternoon crowd, right, because that's when everybody was there. And so I tried to find times where there wasn't very many people there, because I was self-conscious a lot. But for me, it kept coming back to, I really want to pursue this refereeing thing, and I really want to upgrade, and I really want to do bigger games. This is what I have to do. Mm-hmm. I don't really have another choice. That everything else I've gone back on, I'm not going to go back on something else. And I was enjoying the workouts. Mm-hmm. They were just fun. There was always a new challenge. There was always another weight to accomplish, and a heavier weight or a faster time. So that was what drew me in, was that there was always something else that I could achieve. And then I was chasing the hoodie, and then it was the 365 shirt, and then the 1,000 banner. And so there was always another thing to go grab, which kept me motivated in those early days especially.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I think one of the things I always remind people is picture yourself at the gym. If you were just at the gym working out, if you saw a bigger person, or any person really, even if they were doing something incorrectly or whatever, if they were trying as hard as I'm sure you were trying and going for it, you'd be like, man, that's awesome. Yeah. If you even pay attention to the people around you. For the most part, when we go to the gym, and I haven't been to a regular gym for a long time, but like, everybody's just worried about themselves. Yeah. Everyone's like, who's looking at me? Why are they, I just want to do my thing and get out of here. I think this perception that people have that people are going to be watching them and judging them is, I'm not saying it never happens, but it's very rare.
Yeah. Like, I think once did I ever have anyone ever come up and talk to me at all.
Right.
Ever. In 6 months.
I would say you're more likely to have somebody come up and ask, hey, what is it you're doing? Like, that looks really hard, or it looks really fun, or...
Yeah, like just...
curiosity.
No one ever really talked to you. Like, it is that. Like, it's really easy to think everyone's watching me and being that self-conscious, but it never happened. Like, people... I wasn't watching anyone else either.
Exactly.
Like, you guys go do your thing, and when you're done with the squat rack, I'll come over and do my 20 rep squats now.
Yes. Okay, so you started working out at your gym, at your home. You had all your setup with COVID. Great. You're becoming a baker. You're getting fit at the same time, which is just such a funny combination of things that I love. Yeah. And you lost a significant amount of weight.
Yeah.
How much weight did you lose, and how long of a period of time was it over?
It took probably close to a year to get down to where I really wanted to be. And I lost about 80 pounds.
In a year?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was probably a year and a half.
Okay.
Because I had lost some prior to joining street parking, a little bit just from
the other random stuff.
From just doing random things, right? But from my peak to when I really got to where I wanted to be, it was about a year and a half.
Wow.
With some other random things.
Yeah, but the fact that you were just doing some stuff is going to make a difference for sure.
By not just sitting on the couch, that started to burn some calories.
And the 1,100 calorie a day. Yeah. I'm assuming but you said you gained all that back. Okay, so about a year and a half, and you lost 70, 80 pounds. Yeah. I know the questions that we get asked whenever we post stuff like that, or whenever somebody posts weight loss. What else did you do? Like, they want to hear, like, but what secret supplement were you on, or what secret, you know what I mean? There's always like the what else. It can't just be this simple prescription of consistency and eating real food and all of that. What was I know what you kind of do now with your schedule, but during that period of time where you were losing weight, what workouts were you doing? Were you doing any of the extra ones? Were you doing anything other than, or what were you doing with your diet during that time where you were actively losing that much weight?
I wasn't doing a lot originally with the diet. It wasn't until one of the challenges that was primarily nutrition focused, where I bought Template, and then went all in on that.
Okay.
And I was starting to get frustrated, actually, at one point. I was like, because I lost a decent amount of weight pretty quickly, and then I felt like I plateaued.
When you first started doing street parking and you were losing weight pretty quickly, had you changed what was your diet before?
It was hit and miss. I mean, it was not very clean. I knew enough from just general nutrition advice.
Right.
And so it was okay, but there was still a lot of pizza 3 nights a week and fast food.
That's what you would attribute gaining that, being that big to.
Yeah, exactly.
Just that kind of stuff.
And, and enjoying sweets.
Clearly.
And so there was still a lot of that, but the activity had increased enough to where I was still losing weight. But I got to this point where I had to do something additional if I wanted to go past that kind of initial weight loss phase. I had to clean up the diet. And so another good friend of mine that I had met through street parking was like, I had bought the template, they had bought the template, and he said, you need to go 100% template for 1 month, and then you can come back and whine to me if you still haven't lost any weight.
Okay.
And so that was the jumping off point for me. And I bought the template, I went all in, 100%, was 100% clean for 1 month. I was like, I can do that. I can be all in for a month. And then I'll go back to whatever I want after that. And that was where I started to see a shift for the final like 20 to 30 pounds. And that was the turning point. And then it just became habitual after that.
Wow.
And now I tend to be around the 80-20 rule. I still like my sweets. I still like pizza on Friday nights. And
I think that's really important because you're a baker. You clearly do that because you love baking tasty treats.
Yeah.
And
it is not healthy. It is not template approved.
It's not template approved, but it is in a way that, like what you're saying, is that we encourage that balance of 80-20 or, whatever works for you, because 90% of the time or 80% of the time, if you're eating these balanced meals with good protein and veggies and all of this stuff, then if that's especially if it's something that you're so passionate about. It's not like you're going to grabbing a bag of Skittles. Like, you're making these macarons. Like it's something that you're passionate about and something that you put a lot of love and heart and time and effort into. Like, you should enjoy that.
Yeah.
And we encourage people, like, maybe for other people it's cultural food events that they have, like maybe in their family birthdays are like this really big thing, or Christmas has like this whole food thing around it. And we always encourage people to build that into their lives, but not make it where it becomes a problem is where you're just sloppy and you're just eating things that aren't even meaningful or special or anything like that. It's like, well, then now it's a waste.
And I can tell when I stop being as consistent and allow some of those things to creep back in. I can tell, and I'm like, oh, well, I need to be a little more careful. It's not 80-20 anymore. Right. It's 70-30 or 60-40 type of splits. Right. And I've allowed more of these other treats to come back in.
And that's the best, is when you have that accountability where, like, you're like if you look yourself in the mirror, you're like, I know.
Yeah. I mean, obviously endurance workouts have become, that's a big piece of what I do now, to make sure I can still pass the fitness tests and those kind of things. And the great thing about the endurance workouts is there's a lot of retests. And so I'll see times and I'm like, wow, that one got slower. Like, that's not my usual 400 pace, or that's not my usual 800. And it's all right. Something needs to change. Like, you're letting too many of these other things creep back in.
Yeah. And I think retests and stuff like that can tell you so much about your lifestyle factors. I know I've been doing this rowing program recently, and because we did the CrossFit Open, I had missed several weeks of my rowing workouts because I was just dumb and redoing the open workouts and all of this. And so I went back, and with the pace that I was supposed to hold, I was dying. I was like, I missed too many of these rowing workouts.
Yes.
And also I hadn't been sleeping and stuff as well with the kids, but you can feel when you do retests like that and you follow these programs, you can feel if you're falling off somewhere.
Yes.
And then you can be like, okay, I need to look and see, like, am I not eating enough? Am I not sleeping enough? Like, what's going on? Why am I struggling to hold this pace or whatever.
That's actually where I'm at literally right now. So I had been doing consistently 2 endurance workouts. It was every Tuesday, Thursday was endurance on top of the daily workouts.
From the 52 weeks, you were doing 2 a week?
Yes.
Oh, so man, that's rough. Okay,
right
cool.
right before the 52 week got it out, as we were transitioning from Wodify to the app, I had a goal. I wanted to do every single endurance workout that had ever been. I saw
you post about this.
That had ever been done. Okay. And so I was doing the current one that got released that week, and then I was scrolling all the way back doing the original ones, and that was how I did it. And then that got taken away because we had 52 weeks. Which is fine. You finished
the 52 weeks, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It took me longer than 52 weeks because this last fall season was really, really busy for me from a refereeing standpoint. So I had to back off of the endurance because I was running 40 plus miles a week.
When you do endurance, do you run, or do you bike, or do you row?
I do a combination.
Okay, I was going to say, I didn't know if you chose running because you're already doing all that running.
I do try to do some running because it is a little bit different, and your legs have to be ready to run.
Yeah.
because that is a different skill set than being able to bike and row. But now I do track. My goal is to do all 52 on all 3 implements.
Wow. Okay.
Over the next year and a half. So I finished on one, and so I have a tracker that the second time through, I'll then have to choose a different implement than I did the first time through on each of the different ones.
That's cool. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about your schedule now, because I think it's so interesting, because sometimes when people jump into the community, let's say somebody jumped in now and they saw you and they saw what you look like and what you do and all of this stuff, they would never have known this story that you've gone through, especially that like you came from not even knowing how to do any of the movements, and it was all brand new to you, because now you're not really a one street parking main daily workout. You dive into the extra programs heavy, and you love adding that stuff in. You're doing an extra program and the daily quite often. So what's your daily schedule? Like when do you work out and how much time do you spend? And then go through like a rough week, or at least what your week looks like right now.
So the way I try and structure it, and there's some give and take. Life happens, travel happens, and things like that, which adjust it on occasion. But the average week now, I do the vault workout on Monday, and that's the only thing I do on Mondays. My goal is to go as hard as I can on that because of the leaderboard piece of it.
We'll get into that.
So I reserve Mondays just for vault, and that's my as high of intensity as I can possibly have.
Nice.
Tuesdays would be typically the daily workout and either butts and guts or endurance. Wednesdays have become just a lifting day for me. Where I'll do a couple of the 5-3-1 lifts and an Olympic, one of the Oli EMOMs.
Okay. So you're doing the Oli EMOMs now. Have you completely basically taught yourself how to do the lifts from watching videos and filming yourself?
Yes. That was how I started. I do have a friend locally in Kansas City that a lot of times now, typically once a week, he goes and watches me and we break down the movements and hitting all of the positions on the cleans.
Okay.
Yeah. Making sure right now we're working on clean and jerks the last couple of weeks.
That's awesome.
And making sure I hit every position and getting that power position into the clean, and then being ready to load up the hips and the quads to get the jerk correctly. And
that's awesome.
So that's been fun to really break it down, not just kind of be able to do the movement and kind of do it right.
Like well enough for the daily workouts, but if you're,
let's really, because the first day we spent 30 minutes with just a PVC pipe. And that day I PR'd my clean.
Of course.
Because now I'm hitting the right positions and I'm loading up correctly. And I probably could have gone a lot heavier than we did, and I had already PR'd it. So that was really fun to see that kind of progress just from really honing in on technique.
Yeah.
So that's a really nice thing that I've been able to add.
That's great.
That has been fun.
You said that Wednesday or Thursday is your day where you do lifting?
Yeah, so Wednesdays are because Monday and Tuesday are usually pretty high intensity. So Wednesday, just lifting, that's relatively low intensity.
Okay.
And so that gives my body a little bit of break from the intensity, but still getting movement in and getting some lifting in. And then Thursday is usually daily WOD and endurance or butts and guts, to kind of depending on the Tuesday, Thursday schedule. And then Friday will be daily WOD and some accessory. A lot of times it's the other of the 5-3-1s.
Okay.
And then Saturday, it depends on how I'm feeling.
What day of the week are games usually?
Usually Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, or some combination in there. And so depending on the level of game, how rested I need to be for them. I mean, some games I need to be more rested than others.
Right, of course.
And so then I'll move things around. But every Sunday is always full rest from street parking workouts. Occasionally I'll have a game, but that would be the only movement on Sunday. That's my Sunday mornings are grab my coffee and my calendar, and I look at the week of workouts, and I start picking I want to do this one, and I want to do this one with a vest, and I want to do this one extra challenge.
Okay, so let's go again back to you 10 years ago. You have this finance business, and you're not a baker. Like, could you have pictured yourself on your Sunday with your calendar? And I know you said you have like some sort of sticker system.
Yeah.
Like planning this whole thing, like, you've changed so much.
Yeah, it is night and day from where I was.
Wow.
Which has been it's been a fun transition now. I'm a totally different person than I was. just visually and emotionally and physically, from where I was and what is important, and knowing that my health, obviously for my refereeing careers, is a big deal, and being fit. As an older referee, there's a lot of guys old. 10 years younger than me trying to be at the same level that I'm at.
Yeah.
So, trying to be as fit as a 25-year-old when you're 39 is a little more challenging.
Oh, I know.
And so having to put in even more work than a lot of these other guys sometimes. And but that has been a huge transition, that one I'm super proud of.
Okay, so but you also, we haven't even talked about the fact that you have 3 kids.
Yeah.
You've had 3 kids through all of this.
Yeah.
So how are you schedule-wise? What time of day are you working out? How are you fitting all of that in with your baking business and your kids and all of that?
So my typical workout, my typical schedule during the week is I'll get them off to school. And then once they get off to school, the last ones go at 8:30 is when they get on the bus, roughly. And then I come back, and that's when I get my workout in after I get them to school.
Okay.
And then it's clean up and get to baking. And then
you just bake at home? Is it all in your home kitchen, or where do you go?
No, I have a commercial kitchen space that I will go to. So some of it's at the house, but most of it is at the commercial kitchen.
Like prep stuff is at the house, probably. Yeah. Okay.
Or like final touch type of things.
Okay.
But most of the baking is at a shared commercial kitchen that I rent out, because I'm all custom orders.
Right.
So you can't just walk into the Cake Ref Bakery.
Right.
But
the Cake Ref.
Yeah, that's the name of it.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
And so then I just go there and bake, and then come back home, and then sometimes have to go ref that night.
Wow. Your kids have obviously seen you go through this weight loss trend. How old are they?
My oldest is 13. She'll be 14 here in just a few weeks.
Okay.
And then a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Okay, so they've obviously seen you go through this like weight loss transition. I love, one of the things that I love is that how honest kids are, and just the things that will come out of their mouths. And they don't, at least my kids are still young enough now that they don't know that saying that somebody's big or small or, whatever is, some of those things can be taken negatively. Like they just don't know.
Yeah.
Like after I had my babies, I would be working out, and Knox would say that I have a floppy balloon belly. Like he thought it was cute and funny, and he would want to touch it and play with it. And to me, I'm just like, oh my gosh. What kind of things, I'm assuming your kids are a little bit older, so maybe they understand that, but what kind of impact did you see that it had on them? Did they ever ask you questions? Did they ever tell you they were proud of you? Like, how did they react to your lifestyle changes and your weight loss?
They kind of come and go. And what's been fun, my oldest did one of the vault programs with me. She doesn't like doing them anymore. She doesn't like.
It's ebbs and flows.
She did it, but she went through one full 25-week program, which was fun. And my youngest went through vault last year with me. And so that was typically in the afternoon. He would come home from school.
That's awesome.
And then we would knock out.
7. He's 7.
Yeah, he's 7. And so then I would modify shift or whatever for him. Sometimes I'd just modify program A and just be like, look, you can do this. We'll just grab you the 5-pound dumbbell and not a 40-pound. But and he had a blast with that. So he has his street parking shirts and things that we bought him for completing it. But they've ebbed and flowed, and sometimes they want to come work out. Sometimes they'll come out and just want snacks while I'm in the middle of my workout.
Of course.
And like all of us. But it's been really fun for them. If there is ever some times where maybe I've missed a few days, they're like, Dad, are you going to go work out? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, that's good.
Like, haven't seen you out there in a little bit. And so that's been good as well.
Yeah, I mean, ours do the same thing. Or we'll have just finished our workout and we come inside, and then Knox comes home and he'll be like, I want to go work out. And we're just like, all right.
Yes. Shift it is. That's my go-to with them. Whatever I can do to be as low intensity as possible for me at that point. Like where I'm not going hard, I'm just going to help make sure you're moving too.
I know one of the more challenging things that we hear from parents a lot of the times is when you want to change your nutrition, how it impacts the whole family dynamic. And it's like, well, I want to eat this way, but the rest of my family doesn't necessarily want to eat this way. Or of course you also want your children to eat healthy, but there's like that fine line of not making it feel like a punishment for them, or that they can't have the foods they enjoy, especially if they're used to something else.
Yeah.
So how did you deal with all of that when you were changing your own food?
That's a good question. It's still a work in progress, in that it's been a difficult transition where there have been a good amount of the times where I am eating differently than they are, than what end up having them eat. And that becomes just an ease of,
right.
I don't want to deal with the screaming and yelling again,
right.
And the frustration. Fine, you can have whatever. So still working through that transition and trying to figure it out.
I don't think that anybody necessarily has it figured out. I think, if you start, like we're lucky enough to know enough about nutrition before we had kids. So there's just a lot of stuff that our kids just haven't been introduced to. So we're lucky that we don't have to at some point take it away. But even still, they oftentimes will go through periods where they don't want to eat meat at all. And it's just, I just want pancakes for every single meal or whatever, So I think everybody deals with that. What I think because a lot of times I know we hear parents say that they feel guilty making themselves their own food and things like that. And it's like, I think just setting the example where they see you eating the stuff when they get older, they've seen so many examples of healthy meals at this point that they at least know what it looks like.
Yeah.
When I grew up, I didn't eat fruit. I thought it was weird to eat fruit as a snack. I had a boyfriend in high school whose family was very health conscious, and his mom was like a fitness instructor and everything. And I remember he was like, "Do you want an orange?" Just like randomly, and I'd be like, "Who just eats an orange?
Yeah.
Like that's so weird."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What are you talking about? Like it's just you." So no orange.
Yeah.
But like I thought that was strange. Like I would never have just grabbed a piece of fruit and eaten it as a snack.
Yeah.
And
my
so
kids still look at me weird when they're like, "What snack can I have?" I'm like, "Well, there's bananas and oranges right over there. You
Yeah.
can have one of those." They're like,
Yeah.
"No, I meant like, where's the Rice Krispies?"
Exactly. So I think just seeing you setting the example right now is super powerful. And or parents, if you're listening, like don't feel guilty for eating something different than your significant other or your kids or whatever, because even if only one of your kids latches onto it, it's going to be so worth it. And just, to see that you are taking control of your fitness basically, and that they could too, when they want to, when they're ready for it, if they want to, that you can, and they've seen you do it. So
the nice thing with a lot of the recipes that are available, a lot of those are so tasty anyway, that has been a huge help.
Oh, they're so tasty.
To making a lot of those.
And I'm not really a good cook.
The ranch potato recipe, that's my go-to. Like I make that all the time. And all of my kids love that one. Like they're always super excited when they see me cutting up the baby potatoes. And so those ones are always, that one especially was always a hit. And then just pair it with a meat and a veggie and off we go.
So, okay, next question is, what you've gotten to this point where you love doing, you're doing the lifting, you're doing butts and guts, it sounds like, you're doing endurance, you're doing the daily workouts. How is the transition from just doing the regular daily workouts into doing all of this stuff? Like, what's your motivation behind doing all the extra programs? Because you've probably seen it on our Facebook group a little bit, where there's like this almost butting of heads where when someone puts out their schedule like you or like Alex Bridgeforth, and people will be like, "You don't need to be doing all that. Why are you doing it?" It's almost like
exactly
true. You don't need to do it. They'll be like, "Miranda only does the daily workout," or Julio, and that's true. But it's not. I think there's this misconception of that because we say you don't need to, that we're saying that you shouldn't, and that's not at all our messaging.
Yeah.
The reason that we don't work out more is because we just have this business, and our kids are very young, and so we're just super busy. It's not that. I mean, if we had more time, I'm sure we would do more of the stuff. And I've always said, if you're doing it because you enjoy it, do it, and you have time, and it's not like taking away from other things. Do it. So what's your motivation behind doing the extra stuff? What are your goals around it? I think that's the question.
I mean, there's a lot of it has to do with where my goals are now, and they're always shifting. So right now, it's really keeping up and rebuilding. I had lost some endurance. I had backed off a little bit on endurance, and so I lost some endurance that I needed. And so that rebuilding that up again by just doing more endurance workouts. And then I really wanted to get stronger. Being in a group where I'm watching other people be able to lift a lot heavier than me that are smaller than me just build wise, I'm like, man, like they're lifting 100 pounds more than me. Like I just need to work on that. And so building up and trying to just build up that strength. So that was the reasoning behind adding those in. And then the daily workouts, I just enjoy them. And so like, all right, let's do that.
Whenever I get into the extra programs too much, I'll get FOMO for the daily workouts.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, I have the time a lot of times where I can build both of those in and knock them both out in an hour or hour 15 or whatever in the garage. And so, okay, I'll do both of them. Endurance days are a little bit longer because those are usually a little bit longer workouts.
What I love about what you're doing, it sounds really smart and well put together, is I would be a little concerned if what you do with your refereeing and you were doing the endurance, if you weren't adding in some lifting, or I love that you do the butts and guts because you're running so much and in your job, you're changing direction and all of that stuff. Like the stuff that you're adding in with the lifting and the butts and guts is also injury prevention for you and what you do. So I think it's really smart and well put together. If you were like, well, I do endurance 4 days a week and I referee and I just do the daily workouts, I would be like, okay, let's maybe encourage you to like balance it out a little bit. But I think that's great. And the other thing to remember too is we all go through periods of, not all, but even if you look at the coaches here where the go-to thing to say is, well, they only do the daily workout, Molly, Miranda, Julian, whatever. It's like, but there was a time where when we had time and before we had kids and everything, we were doing a lot more than that. And because we loved it. When it's new for you, because a lot of this is still relatively new for you, and you're for the first time seeing like what you're capable of, and you fell in love with it. So you're still in that period where you should be doing all of that stuff. Again, as long as it's not taken away from the rest of your life, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what, I mean, the fall, usually things tend to have to back off a little bit because that's my busiest season with refereeing. And so I don't get hurt because I do get paid to be able to run.
Right.
Then, okay, now it
that's where
it is less volume. And I'm not doing a WOD and an accessory and 2 endurances and all of that during the week.
That's where it would be a problem, is if it was impacting your job and not, if it wasn't improving your situation, it was actually like, oh, like I was too sore and too wrecked to be able to do my job as a ref.
Yeah.
That's where it'd be like, okay, why are you doing all this stuff?
Yeah, there's been a few times where I'm like, oh, whoops. I probably shouldn't have done that much because this game hurts.
For sure. Well, that's awesome. Okay, so that kind of takes me into this wolf pack, because you're now, I don't know if the leader is the right word for it. So
no, Alex is the leader for sure. Okay. That is Alex Bridgeforth for sure.
So I've mentioned on this podcast before, if you're a regular listener to it, that there are within the street parking community, we have our Facebook group that's the Street Parking Members Group. Another official group is the Street Parking Mamas Group that we officially run. Outside of those 2 groups, there are countless numbers of other side groups that have, whether it's the Menoparkers, which is like our street parking women who are going through menopause, for the LEO, like the law enforcement officers, military. There's groups for there's probably like a Kansas City moms who like coffee group. Like, who knows? There's everything. But one of the groups that started, and I don't know if was it going already when we still had Wodify, or did it start because we went off of Wodify?
It was right after that switch.
Okay,
it was because when we moved away from Wodify is when we started.
There's the Street Parking Wolfpack group that started because when we got rid of Wodify, we took away the leaderboard. Yeah. And we knew that there were going to be people who were sad about that, and they really used the leaderboard to push themselves.
I was one. I loved the leaderboard.
Yes.
When I could get it to load, I would look, especially on endurance running. I would see where I ranked.
Interesting.
Because
okay.
that was a big deal for me, and I usually was all right on that one.
Yes.
If it was on the bike or anything else, I was way down the list. But running, I was okay.
And I agree, it can be a good motivator with a group as large as ours, and with people doing the randomness and the fitness freedom and the who knows what's going on in their life. It was causing more people to not want to log and to feel bad about themselves and not even want to work out than helping this group of people who can maybe use it in a better headspace. But We encourage this group. So the wolf pack basically, and the wolf pack is just guys, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And there's a separate group that's women that I think that does the same thing.
I think there is. I don't know what the name is, but I've heard that there is a women's group that does very similar to what we do.
But basically, you guys created your own leaderboard just for the vault.
Correct. Yep.
And so weekly, everybody will put in their scores, and all week long, I'm sure you guys talk about the other workouts too and what you're doing and all of that. Yeah. But specifically, you created a leaderboard for the vault, and you're now in charge of that leaderboard.
Yeah. So Alex originally started the leaderboard.
You guys are about to get a bunch of requests for this page.
We usually do. Every time it gets mentioned in the Facebook group or on a podcast, we get a bunch of new member requests, which is always fun. I mean, we're up to 250 to 300 people in the Facebook page now.
Interesting.
The leaderboard itself, I think we have 65 on the leaderboard.
Okay, because you got to like opt in.
Yeah. So at the beginning of each vault, we put out the poll to say, hey, if you're interested, opt in. Okay. And then we've had a few that sprinkle in through the 10 weeks so far.
Are they allowed to jump in?
They can. Their scores are going to be a little different because I can't go back and add all of their scores and re-rank.
So is it a weekly leaderboard and an overall?
Yes.
Oh.
So every week you submit your scores. In fact, that's what I've got to go do after this. I got to finish it up. And so we have just a post, and we do this for every day, where on that day, just for the daily WODs, we don't add in accessories or anything like that. You can type about that if you want. But we have a main post.
And then people just put their scores and like what weight they used
in their
and all
score.
that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like this week was the mummy was this week's vault. So put in how many rounds did you complete in the minute of work, and then how many either wall walks or push-up taps did you complete, and did you do it with the base RX weights? Which version did you use? Did you go with the extra challenge weight? Put all of that in, and then. So
you have to compile that all from a Facebook post.
Yes.
For the vault.
Yeah.
I feel like you should have like a Google form or something.
I've thought about that, and
not
eventually
for every
I'll
day, just
add
for
that.
the vault. Okay.
But then there is a lot of double checking, so we want to make sure. So we have some rules around it. Just for that workout, obviously we encourage fitness freedom and all of those things. But for that workout, because we are ranking it, whatever's written, if you customize off of that, you will lose points on your score. If you go the extra challenge and you hit goals, so that was a new thing that we added.
Yes, I love
last
this.
vault round, that you had to be in the goal range or beat the goal range, right? Sometimes you're just faster or can get more reps, and that's encouraged. But as long as you either meet or beat goal, then you will rank above those that just did the RX version of the workout. And so, because we want to encourage, right? Let's make sure that you're not trying to go for extra challenge if that's
just
not
to be
what
in the
you
top
should've.
10 or whatever.
So that's been a fun addition of knowing when you should or shouldn't. For me personally, a lot of times will go for extra challenge on vaults. In fact, the majority of times I will personally. This week I was battling sickness and traveling, and I had just traveled last weekend, a lot of travel, and then coming out here this week. So I knew for sure there was no chance I was doing extra challenge on this particular workout. And so that became like, all right, I'll just go extra or go get it in and go as hard as I can.
I love that you guys added that. I was really happy when you told me yesterday that you guys added the if you do extra challenge, you have to be in the goal range, because that was one thing that was an issue with the Wodify leaderboard, is if people did back then it was RX Plus.
Yeah.
Even if a workout was 10 to 15 minutes was the goal range, they could have logged that they did 45 minutes and it would still put them above. And it's like, but you kind of didn't do the workout the way that it was designed to be done.
Yep.
And people, because they cared so much about where they placed, they would choose to do the extra challenge, and they weren't getting as good of a workout. Yeah. Or they would, like you're saying, with the vault, it makes total sense, but they would feel like, well, I'm on vacation and I don't have my 40-pound dumbbells, and the hotel gym only has 35s, and so like, I'm doing it wrong, and it was just this mental thing. So I love that you only do it once a week. I think that's really healthy, and I love that you guys took the messaging and the reason why the leaderboard can not be great and worked around it to encourage people to still get the stimulus that the workout is designed to have. Yeah,
and that's been the goal. Is a lot of us did enjoy that little bit of healthy competition. And you do kind of get to know the guys that are right around you. So I know the people 5 or so steps above me and below me, and who I'm chasing and who's chasing me on the leaderboard. I'm like, all right, so And a lot of the guys will do the vaults on either Saturday or Sunday, especially the ones that I'm personally chasing, or they'll go a little bit earlier on Mondays. And so now I'm like, okay, they went extra challenge, so now I need to go extra challenge.
We don't have members redoing vault workouts, do we?
Occasionally. I have redone a couple of them because I'm like, or I'll do extra challenge and I failed miserably. I'm like missed goal range.
So you'll redo it again with
I should not have done extra challenge on that one, so I'll redo it personally. But I think I've only done that like twice.
Okay, because 25 weeks of redos is not what we need over here. Okay.
No, that is pretty rare. I think this vault go around, I think there's been like 5 or 6 redos. Like it's not very common.
Okay.
Most of us just do it once.
That's good. Well, I think that's really fun. I know it was interesting to me with doing the open, because we did have the leaderboard for our people, that most of the women ahead of me on our leaderboard for the CrossFit Open, I don't know them at all. And so it's like, what? Yeah. We've got some pretty crazy fit people in our community. One of them is here with your group right now.
Yeah.
And it is.
Which I had never seen. He's not
I had
part
never
of
heard of him either.
I'm trying to recruit him. But
he's going to come in and shake things up.
Instantly like top 5, top 10 person on the leaderboard, which would be fun.
Yeah. So I think
I can't compete with him.
We encourage that. We love that it's member run, so that it never comes back to us to like, hey, you decide if these reps should count, or you decide if this score is legit, because that puts us in a situation that like is that it's not a competition. We're just trying to give you guys good fun workouts. So I love that it's member run and you guys are like, doing it yourselves. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. For me personally, it gives me that once a week that's why it's a standalone workout for me. That's the one day where I don't do any accessories with it, because it gives me that little bit of extra push once a week to, hey, let's see the best score I can possibly. And it's my day after a rest day always. So.
Is it going to be hard for you, because you haven't done your workout yet? Is it going to be hard for you to not say anything in the wolf pack about your workout?
No, I don't think so. Like,
you're working out with Alex, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's yours is bad.
It's going to be interesting.
I didn't test it, but I heard from other people who tested it that it was bad.
It definitely looks rough. It's going to be fun. And I'm probably going to do a different version when it comes out.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Than what I'll do today.
Yeah.
I think.
Depends on how it goes.
We'll see how today goes and how I'm feeling.
Or maybe you'll just use your score from today.
We'll just repost the score.
Awesome. Well, I think it's so interesting to hear your story about, like, in a pretty short time, how much has changed in your life, from your health and fitness, but like your career, your passion for fitness, all of that stuff. You've grown so much, and we're lucky that we've been able to be a part of it.
I attribute a lot of things to street parking. There have been a lot of changes in my life that are very much so because of street parking and the more than nothing mindset.
You have the tattoo.
Yeah,
I have that.
The podcast, the logo as a tattoo, because that was what was the game changer for me. The reason why it stuck was that mindset was so crucial for me in the beginning, that it didn't matter that I was doing shift or was barely a RX woman on the on the weights, right? That didn't matter. I was doing more than nothing. I wasn't sitting at home anymore.
Right.
And so that was the big deal for me, and what changed everything. And now I do a lot more than nothing, but it wasn't that way at the beginning.
And at some point in your life, you'll probably be just doing more than nothing again, and it goes in seasons.
Yeah, even now, I mean, there are seasons of life that is even, it ebbs and flows, and there are times that, okay, I just need to do something today. And I don't feel my greatest. I'm not going to go crush some workout and be the extra challenge and crush the goal. I just need to go move. And that mindset is carried over between fitness, mental challenges, and every area of life.
Wow. Awesome. Well, now here you are on the podcast yourself.
Yeah. Which is surreal, but it's awesome.
Well, thanks for coming. I can't wait to hear how your workout goes, and I can't wait for people to see this workout also.
This will be a fun one.
Okay, good luck.